trong hương đô sống ngàn người vương nguyện kinh nâng niu từ vô lượng cầu xin chính tâm thành chúng phần khói biết mây lành tung dương đại niềm màu đã lan truyền nơi nhờ chân lý chúng sanh đều thoát tương bồi đạo quý bình quỷ dưới đại xe văn hóa tương tình thiên màu thắm tươi đầy đại quang linh tâm đi toàn trang nghiêm hương đều hào quang thiên đạo thiên soi khắp cùng quần xanh Phật đạo đồng cùng nhau tu tinh tâm màu biết thành Nam mô Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật Nam mô Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật Nam mô Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật Nam mô Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật
hôm nay thân theo tương lòng nhân bao ngôi bảo vô cùng tim ta chắp tay kính lại cầm cha từ lời trăm thể tâm con tung ơn như Nam mô Hương Vốn Trường Bồ Tát Nam mô Hương Vốn Trường Bồ Tát Nam mô Hương Vốn Trường Bồ Tát Chương Hoàng Đại Tấn Công Giao Pháp Vô Bất Tập Thiên Nhân Chí Đạo Sư Thị Cô Ngã Quy Nhân Tâm Tính Lại Nam Mô Thế Nhất Mười Phương Đường Trụ Mình Tưởng Vô Thượng Chư Phật nhớ việc thơ thường trụ thanh tịnh trụ đa năm trừ thâm tâm bình vi cố quy nhớ tâm tính lại nam mô thế giới mười phương thường trụ mình tưởng vô lượng địa Đại Địa Chư Bồ Tát thanh tịnh tứ sa môn năm phước nhân giác gồ đề cổ ngã quy nhớ tam tính lại nam mô thế giới mười phương thường trụ mình tưởng vô lượng thanh nhớ liền
Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to practice meditation. We have about 10 minutes to meditate. For the newcomers, I would like to give you some basic guidance how to meditate. Now, everybody, please use your hand with your mindfulness. Use your hand to massage the face, the neck, back, legs, arms, knees, and forward. Meditation. In Buddhism, there are many ways we can meditate in order to achieve the state of one body mind. The most effective and common method we use to following your out-breath. In this method, you need to choose the fixing point of your breath, usually the area around your legs or the interior part of it. When you breathe in, mindfully acknowledge your breath as my fixing point. When you breathe out, mindfully acknowledge your breath as my fixing point. But the most important advice, you need to follow your breath continuously in order to avoid producing a thought in your mind. However, if you need strength from outside or unwanted thoughts arising in your mind, don't hold them. Return to the main object meditation without your breath. When you get a second bell, that's the end of meditation. Once again, with your mindfulness, use your hands to massage the face, the neck, the back, legs, arms, to be comfortable and ready for prayer session. I already find myself in awe now. When you go home, try to practice meditation every day, early morning, late at night, long or short sessions depend on your outcome. However, if you do faithfully every day, with due time, you will achieve a state of one positive mind. Wisdom will develop and happiness will follow. Thank you. ngày mới nguyện đi trong vinh ngưỡng mong đại chúng tinh tấn nhiễm tâm thiện tập nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật.
Sangha Reciting Mahapranya Paramita Heart Sutra, we dedicate its merits to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the peace of the world, the peace of this temple, the strength and sound practice of its members, to the restoration and health of the natural world, its waters, plants, and creatures, and to all efforts in its service of gratitude. May this good karma be extended to all relations, and may we realize the Buddha way together. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in this and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easy to satisfy, unburdened with duties and cruel in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not be despising, but wise to later reprove, wishing in gladness and safety. May all be in tea and peace, whether living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, or mid to none. The great or mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those who are near and far away, those born and to be born, may all these be at peace. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none who anger or ill will, wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life, her child or only child, so with the body's heart, should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downwards to the depths. Our heart is embodied, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the supply abiding, by not holding to disputes, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again to the world of suffering. May I be happy and well, may no harm come to me, may I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I know be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, or spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them.
May they learn compassion. May they always be happy and proud. May harm come to them. May they learn compassion.
Eighth, sweet nectar.
Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami, Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami. Being one with the Buddhas in the 10 directions, being one with the Rama in the 10 directions, being one with the Sangha in the 10 directions, being one with all the boundless forms of life, and I being one with our original teachers, Sakyamuni Buddha, being one with the great Manjusri Bodhisattva, being one with the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, being one with
Supplication for the raising of the Bodhi mind, God, feed the hungry spirits.
Raising the Bodhi mind, the something music offered to all the hungry spirits through one's faith and time, yielding the smallest particle to the largest space. All you hungry spirits in the 10 directions, be gathering, sharing your distress. I offer you this food, hoping it will resolve your thirst and hunger.
Prayer of food sharing.
I pray that all who receive this offering will return its merits to all Buddhas and to all creations throughout space and time. In this way, they will be thoroughly satisfied.
Prayer for raising the Bodhi mind.
I further pray that in receiving this meal, your suffering will be eliminated, and that you will be liberated from that being joyously reborn. You will bring freely in the fields of the real and raising the Bodhi mind and practice safely and right the way you become the future Buddhas without any further regrets. Realize the way first reach out to liberate all others throughout space and time.
Prayer to fulfill these vows.
I further beseech you to sustain me day and night and give me courage to fulfill my vows.
Prayer for transferring the merit of this practice.
In offering this meal, I pray that you give
light, inviting misery and suffering no longer through God to accomplish the way. May all creations of the novel world swiftly accomplish the Buddha way together.
All Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas, all Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas, all Buddhas throughout space and time, all Bodhisattvas. Trong đúng với văn mang nguyện cầu mọi thế giới luôn vô thường an ổn bằng cách thứ và chỉ đều đến mặt bởi người để bao nhiêu vọng nghiệp đều được tiêu an và tiêu hóa hoặc khổ đau đi về giải niết bàn này cho tâm cơ thể bằng tương thân như giới loài mặc cho cơ thể bằng khi cùng niệm tình rồi đang niệm tất cả bằng lương tâm về giác thì vẫn cứ đâu cũng đường đường an an mô căn thì hộ hoàn căn thì hộ tát nam mô căn thì hộ hoàn căn thì hộ tát nam mô căn thì hộ hoàn căn thì hộ tát.
Chứng minh ôi là ngộ niệm Bồ Tát thân văn làm vương đế tích triển lâm pháp Bồ Tát làm vương nhất thiết tiện thần đồng đời chân giá lời tới không đảm không tự hợp tiền tự hương thiết cũng không tự đại thừa pháp bảo tôn kinh hồi hướng tây phương ra thiên tịnh độ ô em liền môn em tịnh hai dục mang hòa thi chủ đàm tha tâm lâm phước thọ nguyện lời như tâm như đài Bồ Tát chư hiền thánh tâm sư thi thâm hào a gia họ cho thế giới bình an tiêu tai tiên nạn tầm bệnh tiêu trừ hoặc tiết tượng bệnh đi khổ thì em kia la vi vi hành cảnh tam phương ma tô độc ma phê bệnh các phê đành tai qua nặng gọi tập bệnh tiêu trừ bệnh chướng tiêu tai vạn sự các đường nhữ nguyện từ em được hiện ra tổ đã sanh ruột mẫu tâm thơ nhập thánh siêu bà vị lễ oan văn pháp nam tham đồ vô hồn đề phát triển trị đẳng văn đồng bào tử nam thừa tử siêu sinh cực là phước kỳ siêu linh đẳng phương ba không gian nhiều minh quyết thân tâm bị niệm từ dòng ngày ấp ba năm 11 20 lượng thọ bát thập thế là phương linh nguyện vẫn thân pháp danh thiện đáp từ rằng tâm tháng năm 11 20 lượng thọ lục thập thập thế đạt năm năm chư hương linh nơi đất già năm này còn hương linh trong mười phương hữu danh qua vị hữu vị hữu nhân hữu đạo tạo thương thân la thập thường thừa tư trong đức thừa tư thập lực vạn vinh tịnh pháp tạo xúc tam đồ siêu tam tịnh độ nhất thành hợp đạt vạn tội tâm tiêu quyền cho tất cả hương linh đắc độ cao siêu kỳ giao quyến hàm trên đời làm phổ nguyện âm siêu dương thời pháp giới chúng sanh tình dữ vô tình
đồng thanh Good morning. Wow, I'm stretched. Who was here? Huh? Oh, young member. She will volunteer every Sunday. That's good. Okay. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Now we ready to be sitting down again. I want to introduce all the newcomers who first time come to visit one thing and attend service today. First time comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 here and 5 for them. 6 of us, right? Okay, now I would like you to review your name, where are you from, and how can you find out what I said, and make a big decision to come for that select you for that. Can you do it? Are you taking first time? Are you really for that? The Lord is everyone finding these prayers as relocated from the nursery. Here is we are faith. First time to the temple.
And I'm very impressed, and I'm happy to be with you.
Thank you. That's really good job. Right? The first time I entered the Buddhist temple. That's special, right? What sense is the first time? Okay, thank you.
Nicholas from Eastern Beach. I visited the Buddhist temple in Woodstock, New York. It's my second time.
Thank you. Wow.
My philosopher is from Virginia, and it's my first time. I've been to the temple.
Wow. So you are snowboard. Okay. Oh, wow. You. Wow. Thank you, and we welcome.
I'm from Virginia and Tennessee, and we're in the process of moving. And visiting friends here in the beach. I've been in Buddhist temples in Japan, but I have not been to the experience of meditation.
Thank you, welcome. We all the rest of it is not new, right? We've been here at Sunday, and you know the Sunday service, meditation, chanting, and interview newcomers, and especially we have to make sense of words will give us a short time. Self-power and power of the others, right? That's the topic we're talking about.
Yeah, something like that.
That's key thing. Thank you again.
Thank you. So before I launch into the Dharma talk, just a little thing. So we're live streaming services on YouTube, and we're having some issues with the sound quality in the earlier part, in the service part. So we're thinking. So those of you who are watching live, this doesn't apply to you. We're thinking about starting a live stream at 11, so we'll mostly get the Dharma talk. If let me know in comments, and I'll look at them later, how you feel about that. You're here, so you got the whole thing anyway. Although if you watch it live, sometimes you can let me know how you feel about that too. So the last few weeks, I've been talking about the different paths that constitute the Buddha way. So there's basically one Buddha way, but there's different ways of traveling it. Sort of like if there was, we can all get on I-95 and go the same direction, but we'd be in different vehicles, right? So there's sort of different vehicles to carry us on the Buddha way. So different sort of fields of practice that we can use to awaken. And last week I talked about the Pure Land, which you hear a lot about here, about how there was a king who made a vow to become a Buddha so that all beings could be reborn in his Pure Land. And as a result, we can revere Amitabha Buddha, Adita Phat in Vietnamese, or Amida Butsu in Japanese. And by that surrender, by letting go of your ego in order to acknowledge the loving help of Amitabha Buddha, we can transcend the cycle of suffering. So this week I'm going to talk about Zen. So let me give you a little context for this and why I'm talking about these things specifically. The abbot here, Venerable Kaitian, and I share some foundations in Buddhist practice. We both have connections, strong connections to Pure Land Buddhism, to Rinzai Zen, which is one of the two main schools of Zen, to Soto Zen, which is the other main school of Zen, and Theravada Buddhism. You don't find a lot of Dharma teachers who have all of those different things as components in their practice or in their teaching. And in fact, I know a lot of them who would think that those things are incompatible. But like I said, there's one Buddha way. There's just different vehicles that will carry you on that road. And so it was interesting, when I met Venerable Kai Tien, we clicked on a Dharma level right away, because I spent a lot of time at Theravada Temple, and I've studied Zen, and I have dual ordination in Zen and Pure Land, the Japanese traditions. And so we really clicked and really understood each other very well. And I was very pleased to find him, because I don't find too many people that are like that. So there's a term used in Japanese Buddhism, jiriki. You don't have to remember that, but translates as self-power. And this expression is contrasted with another, tariki, which means other power. So in Japan, when Pure Land Buddhism appeared and started to develop there, they talked about it as sort of an easier path to enlightenment, allowing other power, to help you attain liberation. And basically the idea was that you can't become enlightened on your own, that we don't have the capacity to do that, because we're just mortal human beings and all of that. But if you call on Amitabha Buddha, then through him you could be reborn in the Pure Land. And other schools of Buddhism, according to the Pure Land teachings, follow what they call a sort of way of sacred practice. And this was considered the hard road, because one has to awaken through one's own efforts, jiriki, self-power. So most Americans who come to Buddhism are drawn more to the self-power way. And I suspect that that's because a lot of them have had some issue with one or another of the Abrahamic religions, which you could see as an other power way of becoming freed. Salvation comes about through your faith in Christ, for example. And that's other power. That's the way that would work. But one of the great Thai masters, and I don't remember for sure which one it was. It's funny because driving up here, Christopher rode up here with me today, and we were talking, and he actually brought this up too. And he couldn't remember it either. I think it was Ajahn Chah, who was one of the great Thai masters. And he would say in Dharma talks that he really didn't understand Western religion. He said, you pray to God to save you, and that's like going to the doctor and saying, doctor, I'm sick. Would you please take some medicine so that I'll get better? He said, if you want to get better, you have to take the medicine yourself. And on that level, I mean, that kind of makes sense. If you want to get anywhere, you got to put in the effort yourself. However, realization doesn't come about because you set your will to it. You, as in your ego, doesn't have the ability to awaken. Because the identification with the self, and so if you're new here, I'm sorry, because I know this is really way up here, but you'll get it. The identification of self is one of the things that keeps us bound to coming and going. So you can't do it with yourself because there is no self to do it with. Confused yet? All right, we'll get there. Don't worry about it. In the Pali Canon, which is the earliest teachings of the Buddha often is referred to as rightly self-awakened. And the implication seems to be that the Buddha somehow managed to awaken himself. But that's not quite really what it means. So there's a discourse called the Buddha Sutta, meaning the awakening sutta. Buddha means awake. And so the Buddha is talking about what it means to be self-awakened. And he contrasts it to the way his monks awakened. And they were considered to be wisdom awakened, meaning they were awakened by their realization of emptiness, basically. Although being in the Pali Canon, they weren't quite talking about it that way yet. But when he describes how they woke up, That's pretty much what he's talking about. When we recite the Heart Sutra, we talk about realizing emptiness, and that being a way to wake up to reality as it is. In this particular discourse, the Buddha is pretty much talking about doing that. And he says this, he says, because he is the one who gives rise to the path, previously not yet arisen. In other words, he's realized something that hasn't yet been realized, who engenders the path previously not yet engendered, so he's formulated it, points out the path previously not pointed out. He knows the path, is expert in the path, and is adept to the path. That's why he's considered self-awakened. Nobody had noticed this yet. But his disciples now keep following the path, and afterward come out with the path. And so because he has pointed this path out, and they're able to do what he says, they awaken, so they are awakened by wisdom. So basically, through his path, he awakened to a path that hadn't yet been seen. But because of that, awakening is now possible, because if you follow those instructions, then you can yourself be endowed with the path and thereby embody it. So the followers can't awaken themselves. They awaken through the wisdom that arises as a result of their practice. This is the important thing for you to remember. You can't forcibly awaken yourself, but you can develop the wisdom that will awaken you. Does that make sense? Now that makes sense, right? So this is only possible because of the Buddha. And you can extend this to other Buddhas who lived before Sakyamuni. Sakyamuni is the one historical Buddha, but Buddhahood is eternal. You could extend it to other Buddhas, including Amitabha Buddha of the Pure Land and other Buddhas of other worlds and eras. So you could still say that happens because of your efforts, and you'd be somewhat right. But as has been pointed out by some of the more advanced Pure Land masters of the past and Zen masters of the past, the self of self-power is not the ego. No one can awaken by clinging to the self. So one time, several years ago, so those of you who don't know me yet, I until COVID happened, I was going to a prison outside Daytona Beach once a week with a group of incarcerated individuals there who were practicing Buddhism. And several years ago, one of them came up and he wanted to go for refuge. And so we were talking, there were a few of them that wanted to go for refuge. So we were talking about it, and I was telling them what a refuge ceremony entailed. And I mentioned that we bow to the Buddha. And this one fellow said, "Oh, I can't do that. I want to go for refuge, but I don't want to do that." And so I said, "Well, why not?" And I thought that maybe he was attached to another religion too that forbade that sort of thing. I mean, that happens. Like at Stetson, where I'm a chaplain, in the meditation and prayer room, we don't have any images at all, because we have Muslim students who come in and use that room to pray in, and they're not allowed to pray in a place where there are images of other beings, even just some regular, person, much less a statue that's said to be a deity. Anyway, but no, he just didn't want to bow to a statue of the Buddha. So I explained, well, we're not bowing to a statue. The statue is there to represent the idea that awakening is possible to us because of the teacher, the path, and the community. And that's what you're going for refuge to. So that's what you're bowing to. They still didn't want to bow. He said he didn't think he should have to bow. It was demeaning to him somehow. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you think that you're the most important thing in the universe. And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, well, yeah, I guess I do. And I said, well, then what are you going to go for refuge to? Yourself? And he just kind of stared at me, and I said, you don't need me for that. And it's the only time I've ever refused to do a refuge ceremony for someone. And I told him, you need to get over that. My advice to you would be to bow 1,000 times, to everything you can see. Bow to everything. Because in working my way toward the whole Zen thing here, once you awaken, everything is awakened. Once you realize that there is no me and you, there's no down here and up there, everything is worth bowing to. It's all special, right? So I didn't do the ceremony for him. But I told him, once you get comfortable with bowing, let me know. But he didn't come back. So, you know, maybe one day he will, though. One of these days he'll bow to something and go, that didn't kill me. Anyway, so Zen doesn't get caught up too much in the idea of self-power or other power. On the surface, it seems like awakening happens in Zen because of your personal effort. So let me explain a little bit about what Zen is. So the word Zen, it's a Japanese word that is derived from a Chinese word that's derived from a Sanskrit word that's derived from a Pali word, jhana, which means meditative absorption, basically. And so it's a way of achieving liberation through meditation, is essentially what it means. And so what you do in Zen, among other things, but kind of the core of the practice is you do a lot of what we did for the first 25 minutes or so of the service. You sit and watch your breath. Or you can do a thing that's much more advanced called just sitting, where you just kind of sit and watch your mind and let go of everything. I recommend you watch your breath. It's a lot easier. Not that it's easy, but it's easier. But we also, in Zen practice, offer our practice to the Buddhas. So you notice at the beginning of the service, you know, we offer incense, but the incense is a representation of our moral restraint, our meditation, and our development of wisdom. If you read the translation of the offering as Sukho did it, is precepts incense, samadhi incense, wisdom incense. We're really offering what we do as an offering to the Buddhas. And we also talk about our ancestors, and this is by design too. The founders of Zen recognize the importance of the Buddhas and the lineage of teachers down through time that make this path of practice available to us. But even more than that, Zen has this recognition of the role of Buddha nature that's kind of special. That Buddha nature, is talked about as sort of the seed of Buddhahood that's resident in all sentient beings. In Zen, it's seen a kind of this unique way. So Eihi Dogen, who founded Soto Zen in Japan, was one of the people who kind of came up with this view. He had been kind of baffled by the idea that we all contain Buddha nature, and yet we have to work so hard if we want to wake up. He said, why is that? If I contain the seed of Buddha nature, then why do I have to do anything to awaken? And after a good deal of time and meditation on this, he came to this realization that Buddha nature isn't some mystical quality that we possess. It is our practice itself. And so when you're bowing, you're not bowing to a Buddha, you are one with Buddha at that moment. When you are sitting, you are one with Buddha as you're sitting. So this is the expression of your Buddha nature, not something you're doing to realize it. It is its manifestation in your physical form right now. And so then Zen becomes kind of outside the idea of self and other power. If all beings are expressions of Buddha nature, then you're there already. There's no need for self or other to be striven for. So I know that's confusing. It's okay. This is not something that you understand with your mind so much as that you begin to embody. And as you embody it, then you wake up to it. So when you sit as Buddha. When you pray as Buddha. So if you want to understand Zen more, there's a book that I would recommend is Sunru Suzuki Roshi's book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And he talks about this idea of self-power, reliance on Buddha's power. And he puts it this way, he says, everything is Buddha's activity. So whatever you do, Buddha is in that activity. Because people have no such understanding of Buddha, They think that what they're doing is important without knowing who it is that's actually doing it. Buddha is doing everything. So you have to be aware of that while you're doing it. But if you work with that a little bit, you'll start to awaken to that idea. So I hope that wasn't too airy-fairy.
I know we can make questions from the audience. Anybody have any questions, comments? You are Buddha now.
Well, that's okay. You were Buddhist when you got here, though, so I didn't change.
I like that.
And by the way, you can ask anything. You don't have to ask just about that. So if you're new here and
Questions and any questions? Check it out, see how Buddhism, either one, you can ask a question. Oh, seven. I don't see your hand. You can speak loud and slow, okay?
Anyone, especially since the Vietnamese temple being subject of discrimination,
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
have you been subject to discrimination when you're residing in Brazil or Vietnam?
How to handle discrimination? No. Is that a question from you or for something? No. In your question, that's all. You have any questions?
For example, there's a lot of chaos going on, right, including racism and all conflict. So, nature is partly to preserve herself, which is self-interest, versus altruistic, like our basic group. How do we even up balance out the discrepancy between them? Because I feel like if we put the problem in past, or like the component, like very racist issues,
Before you answer, let me share with you about the question she asked me. She asked me when I came to the USA, am I encountering any discrimination? I came here when I was 27, young man. And from there, it's a long journey for my life. But I can share with you, I have not encountered any discrimination at all. Racism is not issue with me or family at all. Working hard, when that matters to me, come out to practice. Now, I'm proud to be in America, and I'm proud to take care of my patients. All my children try to get back to medical field and join me to have people. So, no problem. I don't have any problem with basic or discrimination at all. I'm proud to share it with that. Thank you.
So the human beings, the human ego is really good at looking for ways to enhance itself, to attaching to things that make it feel better about itself, right? So even, I'll meet people who very proudly tell me, oh yes, I'm a Buddhist, I've been meditating for years. Even a religion that is meant to help you transcend itself, people can, if you're not being careful, start to identify as better than others because of your identity. And I think it's a sort of natural tendency that we have that probably goes back to our evolution and identifying with our tribe and stuff like that. Probably helped us survive somehow. But we tend to look for things that distinguish us from one another, and to go, oh yeah, but I'm the good kind. When you are able to let go of those separations and that self-identification, then things like racism, they don't make any sense. If there's no me and you, then how could me be better than you, right? And, and one of the ways of looking at this is, the Buddha would say every being, every sentient being has at some time in the past, because of rebirth and the endless rounds of rebirth, has at some time in the past been your mother. So how could you look at someone and go, I mean, if you think about that, think, well, this person that I'm angry at right now, or this person that, is a color I don't like, or wearing a t-shirt that I don't agree with, or whatever, wait, they were my mother at some point. Well, who's the most important person in the universe? Your mother, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't exist, or at least, right? Not the most important person in terms of your own life. So, but it's a challenge. I mean, we do look for ways to make ourselves somehow better than other people. And in America, there's a long history of race being one of those things. And, I think it's wonderful that there are people who can come to this country and not feel discriminated against, but there's still a lot of people who do. And so it's our job as Buddhists, if we start to define ourselves as being better than someone else. And this is hard, but even to define ourselves as better than a bigot, right? And I mean, I do that. I see someone who's bigoted, who's using disparaging language towards someone of another race, and my initial reaction is, boy, I'm sure glad that I'm not as stupid as that person. Right? But the reality is, we need to, if we can understand each other, and if we can understand that we're all suffering sentient beings, that we all deal with ignorance, hatred, delusion, that those things we're born with, the three poisons are always present. If we can be aware of that, then we can start to transcend that. And if we can start to transcend that, then we can reflect that to others. And then maybe, society in general will become more inclusive and less discriminatory and less likely to, pick a color and say, we don't like that one. Or pick another color and say, that's the best one. Okay. Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
I'd like to address that for a moment. I think that when you are dealing with hate and prejudice, you're basically trying to make yourself secure at someone else's expense. You're trying to feel good about yourself when you're insecure about yourself. It's important to realize that. The most important thing you can try to do is reduce your own ego and try to find your own sense of worth without the expense of doing it on someone else. I think that's where a lot of the problems come from, is our own lack of personal security. Thank you.
I want to do that last one with the question. Has Zen always been associated with Pure Land?
Zen is kind of not associated with Pure Land. I mean, no.
Okay, so there are some.
They're really two different things.
Okay, so not every Zen tradition is associated with Pure Land.
No. Like I said, this is actually kind of unusual. So the Venerable Kaitian's first teacher was a Pure Land teacher. And then he studied Zen. They're two kind of separate things. So a lot of Zen guys, if you brought in Pure Land, they would have no use for that conversation at all. A lot of Pure Land people, if you brought out Zen, they would have no use for that conversation. Michelle has something to say.
Oh,
And she might want to comment on the Zen relationship with Zen and Pure.
Dr. Cho is not internet than I do, but when I went in our environment, in private history, we do have a lot of discrimination. However, in order to overcome those, like because of, when in our working environment, then people pass away, and they are Christian, and the whole group go to their funeral. Yes, I do go there too, because and I pray for them. I go to the church and I pray for them. However, when I pray in my way. So, and plus, and in Buddhism, we open to every other religions. We don't close it to say, I'm a Buddhist, I can't go to the temple, I can't go to the church, I cannot pray. That's not what we taught. We taught we open to other religions, and we should respect other religions. So, in order to do that, when I go to book, I don't tell people I'm Buddhist, but I use my compassion to understand other people, religion, and understand other cultures. And gradually, they realize that, yes, I'm a Buddhist because I do certain things that they don't do. So that's how I overcome with the discrimination. That's my 2 cents. I mean,
if you look in detail, they have E and Z cases you can say it's a relationship with discrimination. Stand back, look at the whole picture. I'm glad to share with you, and this is a chance for me as a Vietnamese come to the stage to thank you, Americans, open your arms and take us with passion. Think, this temple, without the open heart of Americans, how can a very young community in Vietnamese can build a temple for you all come together and take together. Think about it. I said, praise God, it's there out there, obviously, because we USA. However, when you look at the whole picture, I think we could build it. Thank you very much, American, and open your arms. Well, that's enough, right? Let's go back to the Buddha nature. Right? Let's sing the happy song. This is Buddha nature. We have, come on. Buddha nature. Sing Buddha, right? Whenever I wake up, I feel happy. Oh, where am I? I feel happy. Oh, where am I? I feel happy because I have lonely. Whenever I run, I feel happy. Whenever I sit, I feel happy. Whenever I rest, I feel happy. Because I have learned to here and now, here and now, here and now, the truth Wow.
very much and see you next Sunday.